Hello and welcome to PayPal's Driving Business Online series. This is the first in 3 webinars we're going to be holding over a number of months. Now, this is the important point of this exercise is we're going to introduce you to some people who've created some fantastic businesses. We're going to bring experts in to actually analyse how that business is doing, what they can do to improve. And the point of the exercise is that we're going to help you grow your business and also access a greater part of your business into the online sphere. Today we're going to be talking to a guy by the name of Tom Griffith, who started a fantastic business called Emma&tom, well known for fruit juice, but they're also in other areas as well. And Andrew Reckman, who's a senior director with PayPal, and he has expertise in also growing businesses and particularly on what you can do online. So without any further ado, let's go and meet the people we're going to be talking to over the next few moments. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now tell us about Emma&tom.
We started our business 9 years ago. We've now got a range of probably 35 different wellbeing, natural drinks and healthy snacks, which we market across Australia. We have a proprietary network of 30 vans servicing high-end retail outlets in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne and Perth. And we supply to Virgin Airlines, David Jones, Woolworths. So we're just exploring as many pipelines as we can.
Yeah.
And we commenced online sales for our bars about 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, so let's just roll it back. You sound like an impressive business to a normal person watching this show, but tell us how it started. You know, were you in the food game and thought, hey, I can see a niche here, I'm going to get in there and carve out my mark?
No, we were polar opposites. Emma was in charge of consumer marketing at the NAB, and I was a CFO based in London, Glasgow and Paris. So we came at this completely raw, and it took us a year.
All right.
And we essentially compiled a hit list of the stores that we wanted to be in once we had a product.
Yeah.
And we ran around keeping all the plates spinning for a year to get that product launched.
Yeah.
In those days it was 4 super premium fruit juices. And we literally ran around Melbourne and Sydney in those days. And we had to go store to store, door to door, and you present your product. You perhaps leave a few samples for the owner or manager to taste when he's got a minute or she has a minute to spare. You go back and you sell and sell and sell, and you get your foot in the door, and then it's all about service and maintaining the service. Our bottling line, my plant would say, they would call it the last mile. The point being that it isn't too hard to go to a factory and bottle a pallet full of orange juice.
Right.
You can possibly get it freighted to a capital city to a warehouse. Yeah. The trick is getting it from the warehouse into the shop every week.
Yeah, that's right.
That last mile.
Yeah.
So whilst there's, I suppose, quite low barriers to entry,
yeah.
The barriers are in, I suppose, having a great tasting product which people want to buy, and that would be called pull-through in the trade, and then servicing your customer being the shopkeeper.
Okay, let's roll back a bit further, because there'd be people out there saying, well, okay, how come a CEO and a consumer marketing person came up with a crazy idea to make quality fruit juice? Was it a long drunken session in the bar one night? You thought, this must be a great idea.
Emma and I had been friends for a long time, and we had talked about doing our own business. I was in between jobs, and I took myself off to North America skiing and was drinking these super premium fruit juices, and it just sort of essentially ticked all the boxes. For us, it was a fantastically great tasting healthy product.
Yeah.
It wasn't available in Australia. It was a brand play. We wanted to do a brand. I suppose it was going to be challenging enough without being, I suppose, impossible. Yeah. So I put it to Emma, and she agreed to have a go at it. And we both wanted to have a go. I mean, for me, it's having a go. I don't want to sit back when I'm, old and tired and think, well, I didn't have a really good swing at something. Yeah. And this is our thing. And it's like having a baby. I mean, you nurture it and you work at it. And I was told once that being in business is like keeping fit. You've got to work at it, and it certainly is. So we think we're getting better at it. It's now 10 years down the track, and the business is now growing pretty strongly. And we've obviously understand a lot about the market, but it's still highly competitive. Yeah.
But now there seems to be new ones daily. Is that right? I seem to be seeing new ones all the time.
This time of the year always spawns new drinks brands. I mean, September, October, they all come out, and they normally will give out quite a lot of free stock as a way of launching their product, because people like free stuff. Normally it doesn't sell that well, and we were told once that obviously in the perfume world there's Chanel number 5. And next year Kylie and Mariah and so and so and so and so will all bring out perfumes, and in 5 years' time the beach number 5. So that's sort of our aim to maintain the premium and the service. So we are the chosen one. We've launched this range of dried fruit and raw nut bars, which we now sell online, and they get enormous fan mail on Facebook and on our info email account and things, because people who buy them and use them, they really get it. They understand there's only 4 or 5 ingredients. I know what they are. There's no added sugar. There's no numbers. It's full of nutrition and fibre, and it's a little energy bomb.
Yeah, and I guess the new age of social media plays into your hands, because people really don't want to recommend some of the products out there that we've known and loved and ruined our lives with in the past. I won't name any of those things, but we do like to recommend when we discover something that's really good for you and it tastes good. People will actually talk about that on Facebook and Twitter, won't they?
Absolutely. I mean, as you know, these days, I mean, Twitter can be brutal.
Yeah.
We, by not advertising, by being in great stores and great locations, and in owner-operated businesses where really the owner is an entrepreneur like us, and there's every single item in these stores is there for a reason. There's no sort of randomness about what they're stocking. So if you go to, say, the Armstrong Street Food Store in Melbourne, Andrew, who works behind the counter, who owns it all, Nick, will say, have one of these juices to the customer. So the customer hasn't been marketed at, it's been endorsed by somebody independently. They in turn think they've discovered it themselves, there's ownership there, and then they'll tell their friend. So, but that doesn't take a day or two, that takes years. Once again, I mean, we have been, we said no to Coles twice in the early days because we weren't ready to
play A grade.
Play A grade, we didn't want to muck it up, and that might have been, in some people's arena, a little unwise, but we would rather do what we're doing. So we always looked at our strategy and said, well, the risk of this not coming off is only about 10% because we're doing it in such a deliberate and structured fashion. Of course, we're on Facebook and Twitter and we promote that quite actively because there's 1 billion people on it and it's free. Why wouldn't you? It's a no-brainer.
So, it is a new competitive landscape. What have you learnt about it? Obviously you're using it now, but what are some of the positives and maybe negatives you've learnt dealing in this landscape of social media and online marketing?
People, we feel that our supporters, and generally people are very supportive of us, feel that we're a company with a lot of integrity. And we need to obviously protect that and live to those standards. So it does make you, I suppose, behave, and we always try to have a very high level of integrity, and we want to be good corporate citizens. And I suppose online media and online profiles really put your hand over the flame to truly live that life. And we're about to have our 7th Emma&Tom's Christmas run in Melbourne, which we raise money for Peter Mac Cancer Hospital. And we do that actively, but we're very careful not to say that we've raised the money, because we don't. The competitors in the running race raise the money. We just hold a forum which I suppose facilitates that. So I think integrity and obviously speed of movement. I mean, if you have a problem, people are very, very quick to tell you. And I think you need to be very quick to respond. And as you're doing yourself, mistakes and mishaps do happen. It's how you respond is what actually counts. Look at BW. How you respond really counts, and people monitor that. And they're truly appreciative when you respond appropriately.
Yeah. So, but you actually have had a strategy to give back to the community, because not only do you care about the community, it is a positive for your business to be identified as a good corporate citizen, isn't it?
And we give quite a lot of stock to Second Bite, the food charity. We're a great supporter of Pink Ribbon breakfasts every year. So we do what we can. We have to obviously maintain profitability ourselves, but it's great to be just something more than a revenue generating corporation.
But you do have a business background, Tom, and I have to ask this question, and the question is, it's great that you're doing it, but are you able to actually measure the benefit to the business of being a good corporate citizen?
I think people look for many, many touch points in businesses and brands these days. As I said to you recently, we've just launched the first fully recycled PET bottle. Now, that might be reason alone to buy a bottle of our juice, but it's a touch point that a complete benefit. I mean, every bottle literally saves its own weight in CO2 emissions by being recycled.
Yeah.
Visy have just built this $40 million plant in Sydney. So we are doing that. So we're always trying to obviously minimise freight and wastage and behave. Set the example.
Yeah. Now, Andrew, you've heard the story.
Very inspiring.
It is, isn't it?
It's incredible.
Yeah, and so the couple of things I'd love you to make a contribution. One is if you have any ideas that or ask some questions about whether they've tried things that you might have tried, given your knowledge of the online world. But also, if they're apart from giving advice, get an understanding better, so we actually can share the whole Tom and Emma experience.
Well, the fantastic thing about working at PayPal is that we actually have 90,000 small and medium businesses, and a lot of them have inspiring stories just like Tom.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of success stories out there in the market that you can look at, and we'll be profiling some of them through the series, which is terrific. The question I'd have for you actually is, using the social base that you've built, the people who love Emma and Tom and affiliate with its lifestyle, where do you think you can take the product going forward? And obviously you've extended from the juice into the health bars. What sort of opportunities do you think that opens up to extend your range, if you think it's valuable, to really take advantage of that community you've built?
I think our brand extension is actually fairly broad. We haven't almost begun to explore that fully. We're doing more and more. Bars, health bars, as being raw fruit and dried nuts, are growing exponentially. And because people now are looking for these sort of healthy snacks, it's the old cash rich, time poor. So we are currently about to develop a range of chocolate truffles using actually date as a base. Once again, so it's super healthy and delicious.
What is a base?
Date.
Date.
Because
natural.
It provides some
plenty of sugar in dates. It's all natural,
sweetness,
isn't it?
full of fibre. Yeah. High cacao, so it's high antioxidant. Chocolate also, people love chocolate. It's very, very popular. So now, because we have our 30 vans doing distribution, plus the online, the higher value, lighter items that don't require refrigeration and that last for 18 months obviously have great appeal to us. So the extension, I think, is limitless and really only limited by us as a resource to go and execute.
Yeah. And what's brilliant, I think, because I'm sure you didn't think about an online solution when you started. Yeah. I've interviewed you so many times, you've never once said that. So if you want to try and make it up now, we're not going to believe you. But because you've grown into it like all of us have, the staggering thing about online is that it's also overcoming the major problem you had when you started, that last mile.
That's right.
Wasn't it? Because it was always like getting it into the shops was the hard bit. Online, you're avoiding that. So the blue sky ahead might be quite extraordinary if you can come up with the products.
Absolutely. And you look at, once again, it's about making a market, and you definitely have to have an online footprint. And, I say the bigger the better.
Andrew, you're the online guy.
Absolutely.
Any other things you'd like to ask?
I think the interesting thing I picked up on, Tom talked about, is the involvement of social media, and particularly mobile. And what we're seeing is this massive migration to mobile devices, particularly in browsing, but also in purchasing. So now 1 in 3 transactions that PayPal processes happen on a mobile device. And that, when I joined PayPal 3 years ago, was pretty much zero.
Yeah.
So the migration of mobile is terrific. And it's great to see you talked about the photo appearing of an Emma and Tom's bottle in Byron Bay. I think more that you can build up that social element, using Instagram, for example, to publish photos and build your community around that, it's going to really enable that affinity that people have with a brand. Because I think in the online space, particularly, you want to build an affinity with a brand because you can't see people, you don't have that face-to-face, but the more you can use techniques such as social and mobile to actually engage with people, it really makes it real. People want to know that there's a real human being there. I love that about your name as well. It's you, and it's you and Emma that people associate.
Tom, another problem I've had in the past is I like your product, but not every place stocks it. Now, in the new age, we have products like Rome's. I'm in Melbourne, I'm in Carlton, and I want to know what shop stocks Emma and Tom's. Do you guys have that kind of app, or are you in? Because that seems a logical thing to do for a business like you.
We are. We've been pitched that a number of times, and we are exploring it because it is about making it as easy as possible for the consumer to get their hands on it.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's the point, and you must be ubiquitous. You can't get away with being in
And the new
400
technology
shops.
really helps there, doesn't it?
You do. I mean, you've got to be easy to reach. I mean, this is why we put our vans on the road, because
Totally.
you've got to make it easy for people to buy it.
Yeah.
And so we try and tear down all the walls.
Okay. Any other outside the square? Because this is
I
what you're
think-
here for, mate.
Absolutely. Look, I think the other topic that it really brings up is niche, and we want to talk about niches today.
Yeah.
And you're a niche product. You start out against the big guys, but actually there's a niche that really wants healthy juices.
And it's clearly defined.
It's clearly defined. You've
Target
understood
audience,
that.
yeah.
If we look at other businesses, and particularly for the audience, I'm in XYZ business. Why should I think about online? And some fantastic examples. And one example I'd like to use is birds off boats. This is a guy who basically had a boat and thought, I've got birds, using the boat as a toilet. That's not a good experience. How do I actually keep the birds off? Did a bit of research, started up the business, and actually is now selling online. Guess what? There are people the world over who have birds using their boats as a toilet, and they really want to get that. And so he's built that business in a very defined niche.
Yeah.
Seems pretty small if you
does.
thought about it in the local
So
sense.
how many boat owners
How
are
many
there in the
people
world?
in your street, in your suburb? Probably not a lot.
Yeah.
But when you go to the online space, the world is your oyster. And it's actually a really great niche opportunity. And there are literally thousands of businesses Australia-wide that are finding those niches that actually work for them online.
So I've got to ask you the question, how does he keep the birds off boats?
So essentially, little spikes on the boats. Birds don't like to sit on spikes. Kind of the same way that you keep birds off the side of a building.
Yeah.
Birds don't like to sit down on something pointy, kind of like the rest of us.
Okay, great stuff, great stuff. All right, so how do businesses generally take on the new competitive environment? We've talked about the competitive
Yeah.
environment. I guess it's both for you. You can do it from your own point of view, you from your
General.
experience of looking at the business. It's a new competitive environment, and my classic definition for this interview would be, well, there's Tom, now developing a product that could last 18 months. He can now sell online. He overcomes a problem he had of getting stuff in the stores, that last mile problem. So the competitive environment, how do people come up and take it on?
Well, it starts with probably the same rules that everybody who's watching this program has seen in their business for many, many years, which is knowing your customer.
Yeah.
Start out, I've got a good product, who are my customers and how do I find them? So using tools in the online space, like search, it's actually surprising how few businesses in Australia, probably only 1 in 3 in our recent research, has actually even got information about their business and their products online. That's how people are going to find your product. Even if they're talking, I want an Emma&Tom's juice, who's stocking it regionally? How can I find one close to me?
Yeah.
So just making available your product online for research purposes is a really important step, knowing how to use search engine marketing and search engine optimization at the very least. Secondly, actually thinking about online as distribution channel. It's quite easy to find online shopping carts. There are free ones or paid ones. So you can set up a store online very simply and very easily. The barriers to entry are really small.
But you were saying that 34%, I think the exact figure is, have their details online.
It's surprising, isn't it?
It's absolutely crazy because, as you say, it's a very low cost just to get online. And even something like True Local will list you. I know. So
That's right.
I was looking for a carpet place in the Blue Mountains a few weeks ago. Bang! The carpet guy came up because it was in True Local.
As consumers,
how dumb not to be in it.
As consumers, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're probably not going to pick up a phone book and look for it the way you did 10 years ago.
No,
You're going to go online and search. And there are many, many ways that small businesses can do that with very little cost.
Yeah, Tom, you guys, search engine optimization and things like that. Have you got involved in that?
We have. We've and obviously, once again, there's no point to over-engineer these things. You can do it yourself. You can go into the background of Google and put in all the keywords, and then use it a bit, and you'll see your ratings rise in Google. I mean, I was in an orange orchard in Griffith, and I phoned my designer and said, right, let's do an online shop. And once again, it would have cost me $1,000, but probably all up to be completely live. We put the shopping basket and the PayPal site attached to it, and we're away. So you don't need to go and spend huge dollars to have I suppose, a modest toe in the water.
Yeah, and I want to make this point because there could be people watching this, or it could be the sons and daughters of someone who owns a business.
Yeah.
And the classic one you guys told me about was a butcher in Hobart.
Yep.
Who was
Tasmania.
he was kind of thinking of a retirement strategy. He thought he eventually would sell a shop. So he started, well, I wonder if I can sell meat online. So tell us about that.
Absolutely. So this is a great example of something you probably think, well, butchers selling
Yeah.
meat online. How can that be?
Yeah.
But actually, for really high grade premium meat, there's a big market for that, and people are willing to pay top dollar.
Yeah.
So this butcher said, I don't really want to be selling, into my 60s and 70s and continuing to be in the store. I want to have a succession plan. I want to be able to scale the business nationally, and started exploring online and found that, lo and behold, people on the mainland were actually really interested in high quality, clean Tasmanian beef, and they were willing to pay a premium, which included the shipping costs, to have that delivered to their door. And actually, if you're ordering a large quantity of beef, particularly in a commercial environment, it's pretty cost effective to have it shipped. So there's an enormous amount of opportunities in these little niches that if you think about your product and what differentiates it, and if you're from Tasmania, clean, high quality product is really a differentiator, you can actually find opportunities. And that goes from things like butchers all the way to services, and also, just unbelievably, even just, high volume items like hardware and the like. If you can find a differentiator, which is your service or the quality or the returns policy, you've got a good chance of succeeding in a very competitive market.
Let's go through it for a moment. You made me start thinking the returns policy. You're saying all you really need is a point of difference. So if in your industry, the industry is famous for being really bad on returns and hassling customers, that could be a point of difference.
And one of the big differences, and we hear a lot about, online is advantaging people who are outside of Australia. Actually, consumers, when we talk to them, really want to buy Australian. So do little things for a business. Put some information on your website about you. Where are you? A photo of your store if you have a physical store. Put a phone number there so if people have an issue they can ring you. You're not just some anonymous website that people don't know. So actually making available all those tools of contact. Yes, online is important, but actually having a mobile phone number or a phone number to call as well is a real advantage and gives people trust in your brand and your product.
All right, Tom, do you actually sit down with Emma and other people in your organisation and strategise around, well, this is what we're doing now online, but are there other things out there? Like I know Andrew brought up Instagram, and there'd be a lot of businesses out there who would have an online strategy that maybe not on the cutting edge when it comes to Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Do you guys strategise around that, or do you have someone in your organisation who does it for you?
We've shared it around between our PR consultant, myself, Emma. So we all have supposed to have an input. Once again, we try very, very hard, supposed to be sort of new and cutting edge the whole time. Of the butcher example, we are looking seriously now at doing an online or a home delivery service, because I think people are going, once again, when it's premium and they want super premium with a super service to back it up, and they will pay for it because it's a convenience and it's an execution which allows them to, I suppose, make better use of their time than pushing trolleys around supermarkets.
And do you think that you will be in a lot more other product lines in the future, and it will be the online world that will help you drive you into other product areas?
I think the online world, it's a huge marketing base for a start. So even if it, as you say, if it just supports the retail environment, once again, it's about being ubiquitous and about having a footprint everywhere and making it easy for consumers.
Andrew, we've been talking about the new competitive environment. If someone was out there and they want to start strategising around it to have a great new age environment response, what would you recommend?
The first thing is to actually understand what is it about your business that's unique. And if it starts from there, and then find the channels that are most appropriate. So if you look at someone like Black Milk, who do fantastic Australian business, they do leggings with really high fashion prints out of Queensland. They export it all over the world. Now, their particular customer base is very social, so they have huge followings on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, etc. So that's a great strategy for them. But if you're selling meat out of Tasmania, it's probably a different strategy. So really understanding where you start from and how are you going to actually reach your customers. So for a lot of businesses, finding the right blogs that are talking about your information. Just go down there, spend some time on Google. If you're in the clothing business, spend some time researching who's out there, who are the distributors you might want to work with. Doesn't mean you have to have your own store. You might find that other people are selling things online that you can contribute to. Places like eBay are fantastic forums where you've got millions and millions of buyers coming and searching for products every day. So find out where it is that products in your market are being distributed and how are customers accessing information. Once you've got that base, well, you can start strategizing how am I going to access those customers with a great proposition.
Yeah, the whole proposition of this webinar, I think you assume how I'm doing it. I'm holding Tom and Emma up as an example of a successful business, and I'm hoping people who watch this say, oh, I can model myself on these guys, but be a little bit different. I can remember when I first started, as an academic economist and went to the media, I looked at the greats like the Max Walshes, the Ross Gittins and people like that and said, well, okay, I learned from them, but then I have a point of difference. I think Ross chased the school market, so I chased the business market.
Yeah.
I thought business people want to learn about the economy and other businesses. So in your case, Tom, who did you benchmark off when you guys started? Who did you think was, hey, I can learn from
It's a
them?
good point. We take more and more advice these days, and if we had a fault in our early days, it was not taking enough advice. So we have now.
I can remember that. You guys were pretty well up yourselves in that. I was impressed.
It's a very humbling journey, I can tell you. So we take a lot of advice. I always say take a lot of advice. I do look at a lot of other companies. I was saying to you, I talk to a lot of people in the industry. I admire Lorna Jane. Look at her Facebook site. She has got over 500,000 followers, and she's doing new product development on the hop. Right, which sports bar do you like, left or right? She has 400 responses in an hour. I mean, that's gold. And all these people are there because they want to be viewing her. It's not sort of buying them in great lumps from overseas. They're all active Australian consumers who are engaging with the brand. So we look at that and go, well, that's a good example.
Yeah, and the beauty of that, and this is the fantastic nature of the online connection with customers, that you get a chance to understand what they want. And that really helps you sell to them, doesn't it?
Spot on.
Yeah.
And I was picking up on your point. I think you can definitely look at the big successful businesses like Emma&Tom's or Lorna Jane, who also do very well online, or Michelle Bridges and all these great big businesses that you see, but also just talk to your friends, talk to your family, because there are hundreds of thousands of businesses out there doing well online. And just learning from the cumulative experience of all those people, come to resources like drivingbusinessonline.com.au, spend some time on Google researching what works, doesn't work. It's a great place, and small businesses are so dynamic and so willing to learn from others' experience. There's a lot out there to learn from.
Okay. Tom, before we wrap up, is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience now, looking back on the whole experience? And I have drawn a lot out of you, but where you were when you began and where you are now, what has been the most important lessons?
I think our greatest lesson is that the more you do yourself, the better you do. Once again, none of these things are difficult. They're all quite achievable. Once again, if it's too hard, it wouldn't be a job. So I would say don't sort of outsource and let things go. I think we've found the more we've controlled, the more we've gone out and done it ourselves, the better we've done. Because of course the care and the love is there.
So you're saying don't abdicate responsibility too much. Be across it. But clearly you have brought good people in to help you do that.
We've got a great team now, and we work together at the University of Collegiate Fashion. Communication is obviously utterly vital, and back to the online world, it's a very good method of communication. We now have weekly Skype hookups across the whole country, which does a great job at filling in between our quarterly get-togethers, which we now do obviously quite regularly. So communication fundamental, and once again, take it on yourself.
Okay. Andrew, you've looked at lots of businesses, you've seen people make mistakes, get it right. What do you think are the most important lessons you'd like to share with you?
Well, I think firstly take inspiration from people like Tom, and I think the first thing he said was give it a go. That is the most important thing. Whether you're a small business or a large business looking to get bigger, actually get out there and give it a go. Online may be important for you. It might be important as just a means of advertising your business, letting people know about your store or your physical business, or you may want to sell online, but really take advantage of the opportunity that all of things digital offer you.
Great. Thanks for joining us, guys. I always say I've been looking at businesses now since about 1985, writing about them in newspapers and writing them in books that I've written. And when I look at the great business performers and great business builders, they always start with a plan. They have a vision of where they want to take this business to go. But apart from making a plan, they execute it, and they're committed to it, they dream about it. It's the sort of thing, if you're talking about great sportsmen, sportswomen, great politicians, these people have these dreams and they make them happen. But I think along the way, the most important lesson I've got is always keep yourself open for new tricks. Those new tricks, something you can learn from Tom, something you can learn from Andrew, even learn from me, that could be the point of difference that makes your business stand out from the crowd, because that is ultimately what you're trying to do. Create a business that people really love, a business that people talk about, and with all the new things that are out there to make your business stand out from the crowd, online being obviously one of them, this is the great time for you to actually take these lessons, take them into your business and really succeed. Thanks for joining us on this webinar series, and make sure you join us on our next one.